Hello, Serious Survivor here. And we have a very, very concerning situation that's upcoming, and this is ongoing as we speak. The Biden administration has invited the United Nations to come to the U.S. and investigate systematic racism within the United States. And this is very, very troubling. And the reason why is, if we look at the accusations being made by our own administration right now of systematic racism, of all of the things that we hear being talked about, to have them invite the United Nations in to investigate us internally on what's going on in this nation, I'll read a brief headline right here. The UN slams U.S. security forces for violent crackdown on anti-racism protesters in Portland. Violent crackdown. We watched Portland burn for hundreds of days straight. We know the current administration is extremely left-leaning to the degree that it's causing a divide and collapse in this nation. We also know that the current administration is closely tied to the UN and the UN's goals. We hear about Agenda 21, we hear about Event 201, we hear about a lot of things, and we've seen all these things come to pass. The HLPF last month accelerated the UN's goals for the 2030 basic takeover of the world, and that's basically what the 2030 agenda is if you read the documentation in its entirety. But the most concerning thing about this is they're setting us up for a divide internally. This is going to cause conflict internally, because when the blue hats start showing up on American soil and they start pointing fingers about something they know nothing about, then this is going to cause a rift that could very well lead to violence. It could very well lead to an internal civil war or a war against the United Nations. I don't think there's any doubt as to what the United Nations will find when they get here, because they're being brought in by the current administration, who is already making claims about domestic extremists, domestic terrorism, and pretty much pointing the finger at those who are not aligned with the left-leaning democratic values. So the Democrats are now bringing the UN in, inviting them in to investigate our own society about products, basically, so to speak, that they manufactured and pushed through news media, propaganda, and various types of outlets. So according to this agreement, the UN will be on our soil before the end of the year. They already are to a degree, but we're going to see an increase in the forces, the peacekeeping troops, showing up on American soil. This will cause a lot of uproar, and this will cause a lot of rage and anger, and all of that will be well deserved. The United States is quite capable of handling our own issues. We do not need a one world government coming in and making these decisions for us, and this is exactly what we're seeing take place. Another excerpt here from one of the articles, and I'll leave some links in the description. UN independent experts voice profound concern over U.S. government accusations of domestic terrorism. And in other human rights developments concerning the fallout from protests over George Floyd's death in the U.S., UN independent experts on Friday expressed profound concern over a recent statement by the U.S. Attorney General describing the so-called Antifa movement and other anti-fascist activists as domestic terrorists, saying it undermines the rights to freedom of expression and a peaceful assembly in the company. Antifa has not had a peaceful assembly. But this goes to show exactly what side the UN is on now. The UN is not on the side of freedom. The UN wants to control the world. They want one world government, and they're ushering it in. We're in the stages of it now. We know that 2030 was their original date, their original goal, but this seems to be changing and moved up a lot, because at the rate in which we're seeing things progress, I think that we're going to be in a much different country 1 to 2 years from now than we were 5 years ago. The UN has no right on our soil to solve internal problems. These problems are our problems to solve. And if the government would step back and let the people of this nation solve our problems, especially when you talk about social issues, the government, the UN, One World Gov't, none of these can solve social issues. The only thing they can do is put restrictions on people from going places, from saying certain things, and from performing certain activities. No government entity in the world can ever make a person feel the way they want them to feel. They simply have to control us, whether that be economically, militarily, or through other means. And this is what we're seeing begin now. We're seeing that by the UN coming in here, they are going to attempt to control the population. The UN is already pushing for gun confiscation in a big way, and the Biden administration will certainly back that. And if they were to declare a state of emergency, like we've seen in some of the cities, some of the states, then if they were to declare a state of emergency, then that could possibly suspend the Constitution, and that could possibly give them the, so to speak, legal right to go door to door or to take our guns. Once a population is disarmed, a population has no recourse, a population has no voice. And we see that throughout the world. When you disarm a population, you take their voice away because they have nothing behind them at that point, and that's the goal of the UN, the One World Government, and of our current administration. This is extremely concerning. I'm going to follow this very, very close, and I'm going to be posting a lot more information about this in the days coming up. We need to keep an eye on it, and we need to be prepared. Keep prepping. Thanks for watching the video. God bless, and for now, Serious Survivor out.